Checklist.io.
Hello everyone and welcome to this episode of User Fresh Lettuce. I am your co-host Rachel.
And I'm Delia.
And in this episode we're going to be talking about women who don't have a man versus can't get a man.
But before we start, don't forget, subscribe, listen, follow. We are on all social media platforms
at YDFL Podcast.
And ask Alexa or, share or watch us on YouTube, actually.
Check us out on YouTube every Tuesday. New episodes get uploaded. So let's talk about this. So we are both divorcees. If this is your first time coming across our content, we are divorcees over the age of 40. I'm closer to 50. And it is a journey. And we were married for a very long time, each of us separately to different people, not to each other.
It's not that kind of show, guys.
And one of the things that we both have in common in this journey is that there's like this stigma about being single and being like, well, why isn't she married yet? Why hasn't she gotten remarried? Something must be wrong.
Yep.
And so we've come to the conclusion that there is a huge difference between not having a man and not being able to get one.
Or keep
one. Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah, and I think for me it was an eye-opener. By the way, it's so funny that I was out with an old neighbor of mine, and I've shared this on past episodes, and she's like, why are you, and this, mind you, this is probably like 5 years out of being divorced, so she probably really thinks like, I am damn really good. She's like, ugh. But she's like, she got serious, and she's like, no, seriously, like, what is wrong with you? And I was like,
wait, she said, what is wrong with you?
Me? Yeah, she's like, seriously, what's wrong with you? How come you haven't gotten remarried? And I said, well, like I always say, it's never that I lack opportunities. It's just that I understand that it's not like buying a car. Like that seems like long term, but you could always get a new car, or you could always buy a new house, you can get a new pair of shoes, but you can't be trading like husbands. Boyfriends is different. Actually, I've never even lived with anyone since my divorce, and I think it's just such an intimate thing to do, and it's a lifelong thing to do, and then you got to look at the partner to say, if anything happens, like through death do us part. And for me, I've always said, it's going to be till death do me part, otherwise I don't want it.
I think that's the moral of the story is like when you have two women like us, we take marriage very, very seriously. I don't think it's like we talk a lot about going with the flow. With marriage, it's not. We understand, and we also understand like what's expected of us. And we were just today at lunch talking about what our natural tendencies are in marriage, to give and be a level of subservient, and there is a high level of sacrifice, and there's all these things of compromise.
Yes.
And so we understand the level of investment that we have to make, not only in ourselves, in our partner, in our homes, in the whole thing,
in our lives.
And so when you come to the table with that level of awareness, you're not just going to be like, oh my God, this guy's fine. Here, let's just go get married.
Yeah. Like, okay, you'll do.
Yeah.
Strap him up. Take him home.
And also.
And then you realize, like, he's damaged goods,
Oh my God.
I remember you talked about this, and I love this. Rachel said we went on this, if you guys have followed us for a while, we went on the social media app, like a Bumble Challenge.
The dating app, yeah.
And Rachel called these people, like these guys, like what a pool of, like, old shoes.
I viewed this whole, like, as I'm swiping, I'm like, this is like how they say, like, the dating pool is bleak, right?
Yeah.
So I imagine this pool, but the pool is full of, like, old shoes. And it's like some of them are smelly, some have shit on the bottom,
horrendous.
And it's like horrendous shoes tied together. It's horrible. But I will say, like, at the end of the day, obviously now coming into it, knowing what level of, sort of energy that we have to put into it, or that I have to put in it, like, on a personal level, I just want to make sure it's the right one. And there's no way to really know for sure. There really isn't. But there's some basic minimum things that you learn when you are married to someone for a long time and you exit that marriage and go into the next one. There's a lot of red flags.
I know.
And
you're like, I should have caught that. And then you're like, but I let it go.
And anything that's too similar to, like, your ex is kind of like, ooh, what's what my ex used to say or do. And so guess what? It's easy to end up 9-10 years single after divorce, which is crazy.
But there's that statistic, right? So don't quote me because I'm not a statistic expert. But however, if you don't get married after 2.5 years after you've been divorced, the likelihood of you going down the path of marriage is pretty unlikely, which is kind of
We're
scary.
proof. We're proof
of that. Yeah, because I think like once, so I always want to imagine and dream that like I like the idea of being married again. But then when I really break it down, I'm like, yeah, that bugs me and that bugs me. Maybe I haven't met the one, but I'm not sure that I would carry this on. And you really have to take all the things that bug you about a person and think, is this going to be a deal breaker? Because it's going to drive you nuts if you marry that person. And so, but if you haven't done it, if you got divorced and you haven't done it in 2.5 years, the likelihood of you going down that path is very unlikely, is what I had heard.
It starts to slim down. It starts to slim down. You know, I think everybody has their different path, and I know that for me personally, I understood after the divorce, I was raising sons, like, you know, boys into men. They were young teens. So actually my youngest one was just entering like junior high, and my older one was very new to high school. And so to me, it was like, how can they just essentially lost their father, so to speak, right? And the home is unstable. How am I supposed to then say, hey guys, I love you, there's food in the freezer, I'm out. I'm heading to Palm Springs with this guy, and I'm going to give that guy my energy. Now there's no one really focusing on making them number one. And so I personally just didn't want to do that. Call it my upbringing or whatever you want to say. I just couldn't do that. And so I wanted to be some sort of pillar
in their
sense of love and support and stability in their lives during their craziest time, which is the teenage years. It's the most unstable time.
Program.
How am I going to share that time
with somebody else?
With someone else? Because when you're with someone else, you're taking away from them.
Yeah.
And so that was my perspective. I'm not trying to say that's how everybody should feel. For whatever reason, that's how I felt. But then fast forward to like now, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Hold on one second.
You're like, did I do this too long? Maybe I was in this too
And I
long.
had a lot of like unfortunate circumstances in my life that maybe like benched me. I've been saying like, I've been on the bench for 3 years.
Yeah.
But even now that I'm ready and I'm open and I'm now finally responding to DMs and all this stuff after all this time, I'm still proceeding with caution because I understand that marriage means really something big.
It's huge, yeah. And I think that, you know, you'll hear people that have been down the path of marriage 3-4 times, like, you know, or the infamous Jennifer Lopez, like she just got married not too long ago. And it's kind of crazy, but I mean, I think that I don't talk bad about people that have been married 4 or 5 times. No. I just think that they're just hopeless romantics is the only thing that I can call them, because at this point, it's why bash them? But I know that if you've been down the path of knowing what it's like to be married, you're just a little bit more like, maybe this isn't the avenue of the things that I want to do, because it's a long-term thing. And like I always say, should this person get sick, should this person get like any kind of terminal illness, like,
you're the nurse.
Are you ready to be the nurse? You know, and if that's not your like love language, well, you're gonna have to speak that language.
You're gonna have to
wipe the
phonics. You have to
preparation H wipes and like bust them out and do all that. Are you ready for that?
I think like the Jennifer Lopez thing, there's so many women and so many people that they start to put the romantic element in the back burner, and they go with logic and they go, F it. Let's just go with, like, it is what it is.
What's the worst that can happen?
The whole YOLO thing, we talk about this.
No,
it's like,
to me, by the way, for the record, it's not YOLO. What is it?
Yodo.
Yeah, it's Yodo. You only die once. You live every day.
Sometimes there's people that are really leaning in on that mentality, going, you know what, he's a cool guy, it is what it is, let's go. Like,
I had nothing better going on that Saturday.
Let's just do it. Let's just get married. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then I think that's how people like that, they keep getting remarried, and I'm all for it. Like, I'm very, like, I commend her, because obviously you're not going to care what people think. She doesn't like to be alone. Lots of people don't like to be alone. I don't think even people who are good at being alone necessarily like it.
To be alone, yeah.
But some people get to the point where they recognize, I'd rather be alone than fill my time with a guy I see no future with.
Right.
And I think that for me, I have that on such a high degree.
But how many times do you see that, though, too?
All the time.
You see that all the time, where you're like, they've been together 10 years, and all of a sudden, you're with a crew of people, and then it's like that one couple that's off to the side in the parking lot, just like yelling at each other. Yeah. Oh, but we love each other, and we understand each other. You're like, yeah, maybe like if your relationship is that volatile and you're just there just because you know, this is the thing that gets me all the time when people say, well, we've invested so much time. It's like,
So now you're going to invest the rest of your life?
The rest of your life with someone that you know is a dead end. And it's so illogical, but sometimes I think we just get so stuck in the normality of the day-to-day and you knowing that that person's always going to be there. And then, honestly, like, the thought of going out there to meet someone new is like...
that was the hardest...
dragging of the feet.
So
like,
after divorce, that was the hardest thing, was, like, now you have to go through this period of, like, getting to know someone from scratch and trying to find out things.
What do you like to do? And what do you got? Yeah. What do you like to drink? And it's like, oh, what a drag.
But now, years later, you know, being single and everything, now it truly is that idea of, like, I'd rather be alone on a Friday night than fill my time with someone that I just don't see a future with. And then my unfortunate self, whether it's a blessing or a curse, is I know within the first 5 minutes.
Well, you're lucky then. That's like a truth. No, it's not
a curse. Within the first 5 minutes.
That's not a curse.
Here, I'll tell you why.
Why?
Within the first 5 minutes, I know, this is, I mean, the guy could try to buy me things, he could say the things. I cannot be convinced.
He's like, baby, I'm gonna take you to
I can't.
town. We going.
I cannot be, by the way, sold. I can't be convinced. And you and I talk about this a lot.
I know.
You're more open-minded. You're more like, oh, you should just give them a chance. You never know. And I always say, I do know. I know right away.
No, you don't want to.
And it's the weirdest thing because it leaves me single. It leaves me going, well, why am I?
Well, obviously, it's not working for me, so it doesn't matter.
Hey, it's not working on either side, so that's why we're like 10 years deep going, guess what, ladies?
Guess what? We're coming en vivo y en directo about the reality of what's happening out there.
Hi, sir. But whenever you see a woman, by the way, who is single and after divorce or whatever the situation is, and you're like, there must be something, she's beautiful or she's this or she's talented, or why is she single? It could be that she truly understands what she doesn't want, or she truly understands what she does want, and she's not willing to compromise or settle.
Right.
And so we were probably more apt while we were married or whatever to judge a woman who was single, because the husband would say things like, if a woman was single,
something's wrong with her,
or she's a hoe,
or a hoe. No, but you know what? But I think the guys normally know if you think there's a young, beautiful woman that's single that's coming around, he's like, oh, she's a hoe. But you know, he'd hit that all day long, twice on Sundays.
You know what I mean? He'd take her out on that bike.
You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, it's like he's just trying to bash her for you to feel secure. Like, baby, you know, you're good. She's this, that, or the other.
Or and then to be like, well, I'm not going to be a hoe afterwards, or whatever.
And you know, at the end of the day, I think that is usually like a red flag now. In retrospect, when you think about it, that is who puts down the other. Like, why is she? I mean, she's wearing like the things, and why would she?
Oh man!
And you know,
is that a whole other topic?
Yeah, and then it's like he's drooling, salivating out of his mouth, and you're like, come on now.
I have definitely learned over the years from being married that every time my ex he was my husband at the time, was attracted to someone in my sphere, he always criticized her. Not necessarily called her a hoe, but always found something annoying about her and would focus on that annoying thing. Like, why does she always do that? Why does she always say that? Why is she always going there? Whatever it was, it stood out, and he had to regurgitate. It's almost like a reason to be talking about her. And if ladies, I mean, I'm telling you, we're going way off track, but it is a red flag if your man is nitpicking about one of your friends. Alert, alert, alert. It doesn't matter how low the blow is. He's thinking about her enough to then speak about her.
Right.
And it's
and then it's kind of like what you say, it's like you're bonding in the bullshit, and you think that's what you're doing, because you're like, oh, my husband and I, we have such a good, you know, bond and relationship, and we sit there and we talk about all the things, and in reality, he's maybe getting that excuse to just be like, you know, you're at a restaurant, just like, oh, did you see that girl walk in? Oh my gosh, her shirt, duh, or you see her ass, you see this, you see that, and it's just the reason to look over and not have to get in trouble by you that he's talking about this woman and all the things that she's not wearing that is appropriate for the dinner. And so a lot of the time I think that when you're in it, you don't see it. And then now when you extract yourself from it, you're like, oh, that's what that was.
So when you're out here and you're dating
when you're
guys,
out on the streets,
when you're on the streets, you know what I mean? But when you're out here and you're in this desert and you meet a nice guy and he seems really great
and he offers you water
and he
like,
starts to do stuff like, why do you have her as a friend, or why are you doing this with it? All of a sudden, it's not that comes up all the time, but that's an example of something that would make me in 5 minutes go, yeah, no.
Why are you bashing my friend?
I hear. This person has issues. This person has issues. So listen, just because you see a woman out there that's, beautiful or attractive or successful and she's single, chances are she wants to be married, and chances are she takes it very, very serious. But there is a degree that exists of women that are feeling very confident, very independent, and they're out here with all their boy toys, and they're having a good old time, and they're sleeping with all the different guys, and they love the dating process, and that's fine too.
Not to mention too, though, just like kind of going, just because I've experienced a little bit of both. It's really awesome to have kids that are near damn adults, and you just like your friends call you, like, hey, we're going to Cabo like this next weekend, and you just book a flight, and you're like, I'm off to Cabo, and I have no reason to call anyone, ask for permission. You're at an age where there's zero permission to be made. Granted, it's nice to be like, hey honey, you want to go to Cabo? You want to go to wherever, and it's nice to have a companion, but it's also really nice to have liberty to just be like, I can up and go tomorrow and just pack my bags with like 5 girlfriends of mine and just have the freaking time of my life. Like, your adultness is there, but it's like limited. You don't have like little kids running around, little diaper bags, which is beautiful, by the way. That whole thing is
beautiful.
Yeah.
But when you come out on the other side and you get a taste of your freedom and independence, and
you're like,
and you're free to just have, like Delia's saying, to take off, to do the things, and you don't have someone going, well, why are you doing that? Why are you hanging out with her? Well, why are you guys doing that? Like, well, so you're not going to be home? Like, questioning every little thing. And by the way, for me, on the flip side, it's the career thing. For example, I've had the number one thing that has come up when dealing with men that would somewhat consider kind of high level is they want to know how I feel about giving up my career.
Oh, yeah.
And there is that sense of here's the thing, I'm probably willing to do anything for the right guy. Like, you never know. I don't want to work forever. I understand. But at the same time, it's like, where is that coming from? Is that like, you're insecure about what I do, or are you insecure about the fact that I know my worth, so to speak, or that I have some element of confidence and freedom or control? There's something there.
Yeah, and and this conversation could also flip to a man that's never been married and never had children, because I've met a lot of those guys before, and maybe that's just not the path that they want to live their life. And I think that nowadays I can even take it further back. And what I'm saying is, like, you meet a couple and maybe they've not had children, and back in the day it'd be easy for you to say, why don't you have kids, without realizing that they can't have kids. There's like fertility issues, and those are conversations that you don't need to ask. Those are real personal questions that I've learned to just keep my mouth shut. So my point is that it's different from knowing you can have someone versus knowing that what you want for yourself. So that goes with kids, in a marriage, in a relationship, with friends. It doesn't matter. It just matters, like, you know what, I'm good. Like, I don't need someone. I want someone. I don't need someone. And that there's a lot of power there. There is.
And I think even men have, they're a little bit bewildered, coming across someone, that genuinely wants them, doesn't necessarily need them. I think they're not really sure what to do with that, by the way, because even they have to, approach the relationship from a different place, of what we each kind of want from each other, not necessarily need from each other. And it's different. It's kind of like that adulting. It's a very different way to do relationships.
Looking at things. I know when you're younger, you're like, well, they need to have a credit score of this, and they need to do that, and they have to have a bachelor's.
I think that applies when you're an adult, not when you're a kid.
I guess so. It does. But then, if you have your own stuff going on, and you just want a partner, you just have to see that you guys both align spiritually, financially. You guys have, similar interests. It's not like one's a couch potato, the other one's like going on these massive crazy hikes at Mount Everest.
But don't you think that when you're young, though, look, when you're young, there's hormones coming into play. There's so many things coming into play that create like infatuation and lust.
True.
That it's so different than when you're older. When you're older, there's so much logic that's coming in, and it's unfortunate because even if you're like myself, I'm a romantic, like I love romantic things, and so many women were still hopeless romantics even after all the cynical stuff or experiences.
The cynicism,
you know what I mean? But and by the way, a man can be very romantic, and some women will find the problems with that. They're going to question everything. But what I'm getting at is like we do approach things, I think, from a more logical standpoint at this point, and not all men know how to navigate that. But when you're young, it is very emotional, and it's very. But there's the stories, women that just go, oh yeah, we just kind of went for it. Like I was talking to one today, texting with her, and she's one that would walk through a restaurant. He grabbed her arm and said, "I'm going to marry you one day," and it was like 3 weeks later they were married.
And you hear the stories, and I don't know what happened. There's like this energy when a man says, "You're the one." I mean, what's his name? Steve Harvey. He says, "I'm going to marry her." And I mean,
9 years,
but he knew. But he knew, you know. And the thing is, like, and when you see that woman walk in the door, and they have the cameras showing his face, and his face is like he's infatuated with his wife, like he loves his wife.
You know what?
And that's beautiful.
Let's point that out before we wrap this up, because if you really want to know the real reason why someone like her and someone like me is still single, you just said it. At the end of the day, it's because men are not stepping up and taking the level of initiative that genuinely needs to be taken with someone like us, because this is why. I don't chase. I don't think you chase.
No, right.
We are in a place where when you understand your worth and your value, and you understand that the guy that ends up with you is going to be able to receive a lot of beauty, a lot of love, catering we talk about, we like to cook. There's all this nurturing and investment that I'm prepared to make. You're prepared to make as women. We
and
know
maybe
that there's
many
a lot
of you women are prepared to make too.
Right? And when you know that, you have a knowing that you're different than a lot of women, and you know that you're valuable. So if these guys do what's called like we're saying today, like pussyfooting or whatever, like they're dicking around, like they're like, oh, hee ha ha, we should go out. Yeah, okay, we should go out sometime. Cool. But there's no initiative. There's no, hey, I'm going to pencil you in on Thursday at this time.
There's no hunting, no Hunger Games.
These guys are not taking the steps. It's like the salesperson that doesn't know how to ask for the money. It is the most disheartening
You know what you say?
Thing
Bitch
ever.
better have my
Bitch
money.
better have my money. So if you're one of the Fab 15 men, I'm telling you right now, you could probably have any woman you want by now. Chances are you don't have her because you're not stepping up and taking initiative. Literally sit there and say, I'm taking you out on Thursday night. I'm not going to take no for an answer. And by the way, 3 months in, I'm taking you to Cabo. This is what we're doing. Like I'm not taking no for, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like take initiative so that there is no question mark, because we live in a world of question marks in our heads. Yeah. Of like, but does he like me? But did he mean that? But what is it? If you come with clarity.
Well, I think
and precision, you're gonna win.
And that's the unfortunate thing about us women, right? Like, we will take a message and like dissect it, break down, and like
we turn cakes and crumbs into cakes.
And the guys are like, cool, and you're like, cool. Like that's it. That's a rebuttal. But I think it's because we're a little bit more about like, what did he mean and what did he say? I think if you're very clear and you're like, Thursday, I'm taking you out. We're going here. Got reservations. Get ready. Da da da. And it's like, well, maybe the girl might say no 2-3 times, but I think that perseverance always wins.
If you are a man with money watching this show, I tell you, I'm going to tell you right now, if she's
you're like, I'm available.
Hey, they've known that since season 1. But let me tell you something. If you are not required to chase her and she's chasing you, you're so afraid of the gold diggers. Those are the ones, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Gold diggers chase. Gold diggers aren't going to sit back and go, okay, cool. Like they're not. You know what I mean? Like,
they're the hunters. They're like they
gold
have that
diggers
hunting.
They're digging. So don't get it twisted. If you met a woman and you are like, man, I feel like she's the one, but I don't know because she seems like really into money or whatever, or blah 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 blah. But is she hitting you up randomly all the time? Trust me, if you haven't heard from her or you are dropping hints and she's kind of like, all right, well, it's in the air, it's because she's waiting on you to be the hunter. Man, be the alpha,
be the
take
hunter,
initiative,
take action, go.
Yes, book
take
the
action.
Date, do it. Even if you're a busy man and you say, hey, listen, I'm taking you out Thursday night, you pick the restaurant, set it all up, I'll pick you up at 8 o'clock, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Take initiative.
Action. Take action.
Otherwise, these women out here rotting in the streets 10 years later.
They're in the pull the shoes. Full of shoes.
God, we're in the pool of stinky shoes. Anyways, that concludes our episode of You Deserve Fresh Lettuce. Don't forget to follow us online at YDFL Podcast. Check us out every Tuesday on YouTube. Fresh episodes uploaded every single week.
And don't forget, you deserve fresh
lettuce.
lettuce. And salud.
Cheers.